The Concorde is possibly the most recognizable commercial aircraft ever made. Slender white body, drooping nose, all of us had models as children. 50 years after it took flight and over 20 years after it was grounded, no other commercial aircraft has come close to equaling, let alone surpassing the Concorde. It flew passengers not just at the speed of sound, but at twice the speed of sound. As we celebrate 50 years of the Concorde, here's a retrospective.
"50 years ago, aviation broke the sound barrier for commercial flights. On January 21st, 1976, the world entered the age of supersonic commercial travel. On the same day, two flights made history. A British Airways Concorde lifted off from London Heathrow for Bahrain. An Air France Concorde departed Paris for Rio. Supersonic passenger travel had officially begun. This was the aircraft of royalty, celebrities and business leaders crossing oceans at twice the speed of sound. In 1969, 7 years before it was pressed into commercial service, the Concorde completed its first test flight from Toulouse, France, a 28-minute journey that changed aviation forever. Developed in the 1960s as a joint British-French project by the British Aircraft Corporation and Sud Aviation, later Aerospatiale, the Concorde was built to cruise at more than twice the speed of sound, at altitudes near 60,000 feet, far above conventional airliners. With its slender fuselage, delta wings, and distinctive drooping nose that enabled pilot visibility during takeoffs and landings, the Concorde became one of the most recognizable silhouettes in aviation history. A Concorde aircraft is displayed at the Imperial War Museum, Duxford, not a decommissioned commercial airplane, but a prototype used for development and testing.
If you went on a commercial Concorde, it's quite luxurious. This is not luxurious inside. It's got two explosive escape hatches to bail out, which weren't obviously in the commercial ones. And the test crew that went around the world with it would be wearing flying suits and parachutes and so on. It has done some pretty scary things and got through it. And that was what enabled them to refine the product and get a really suitable supersonic airliner.
Commercial Concordes featured refined cabins for long-haul travel, carrying up to 128 passengers in unmatched speed and exclusivity. Among the people who shaped the Concorde's legacy was John Britton, an engineer who worked on the program as a young apprentice.
One of the first things I started working on at that time, so we're talking about 1968, we were building the prototypes. So I was actually working on the engine incident. We called the engine, we called the power plant, because it's the engine, the air intake, and then the primary and the secondary nozzle. So there's three main bits of it.
At the peak of its popularity, the Concorde routinely flew between London and New York in just 3.5 hours, cutting transatlantic travel time by more than half. But speed came at a cost. The Concorde burned fuel at an unprecedented rate and carried fewer passengers than conventional jets. The aircraft also had to contend with strict noise regulations and restricted where it was allowed to fly supersonically. Its loud sonic boom became a trademark, but limited routes, affected profitability, and limited growth. Only 20 Concordes were ever built. Merely 14 entered passenger service. The beginning of the end for the Concorde came on July 25, 2000, when an Air France Concorde crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all 109 people on board and 4 on the ground.
I was on holiday in Cornwall with my family, and I had to jump in the car and race back to Fulton straight away. And the next morning we were on the crash site in Gonesse. And that was a terrible experience. To be confronted with something that we thought we would never see that was a Concorde crash was absolutely terrible. And it was a real low point in our career.
The Concorde fleet was immediately grounded. After 18 months of investigation and extensive safety modifications, the Concorde was allowed to return to the skies. But its glory days were definitely over. Rising maintenance costs, aging airframes, and declining passenger numbers finally sealed the aircraft's fate. In 2003, both British Airways and Air France retired the Concorde, effectively ending the supersonic era for commercial jets.
There'll never be another Concorde. All right? My son says, how am I going to tell the grandchildren that their grandpa flew to New York in 3 hours, 20 minutes, and it takes us, if we want to go to Disneyland in Florida or whatever, it's going to take us 8 hours to get there. And the answer to that is Concorde.
Today, 50 years on, the Concorde remains one of the most enduring legacies of human endeavor. An ambitious aircraft to build and fly, it was a triumph of engineering and a symbol of speed and prestige. It also remains a telling reminder of the economic and environmental limits of supersonic travel, which explains why no other commercial aircraft has ever gone into Concorde territory. Nothing today can fly remotely as fast or as high. To mark the occasion, the Royal Mint released a commemorative 50p coin celebrating the Concorde, while the Royal Mail unveiled a new collection of stamps in honor of the record-breaking aircraft.